And good morning. I hope you all had a very happy Valentine's Day and a great President's Day. And I'm pretty excited this morning because I've had a conversation with Mark following something that happened last week. And I briefly touched upon it in our email to you. But, you know, there's some crazy people out there. And let me get Katie in there. And we have to be careful because one person in particular has been basically stalking realtors for the last year and a half. The board is well aware of him. In fact, I think they even said there's a warrant out for his arrest. The stories I could tell you are just crazy of what this guy has done. He is not just stalking women because it's affected a couple men in our office as well. So what I felt compelled to do was to bring you some information. I mean, we've all done the self-defense classes, but this is different. When you're dealing with stalkers, you're dealing with psychological issues. And so I was speaking to Mark because of his background in the sheriff's department. And we had this conversation, and he has graciously agreed to take some time out of his extremely busy schedule to help us all get the information that we need to be safe. So without taking up any more of his time, I'm going to share my screen. I'll pull up the handout that he's got prepared, phenomenal, and then we'll get going. And if you have questions, you want them to wait till the end or as we go? But we'll keep this very interactive. And so if you have questions, just unmute yourself and ask away. Let me just share my screen real quick. Yeah. There we go. And then let me go. Oops. Slideshow. I don't know who that is. 860.
A mystery guest.
I'll look him up. Okay, so let me look him up and you can do your thing.
Cool, thank you.
Absolutely.
Maybe you go to the next.
Oh.
We're going to tag team this presentation. So a quick introduction. I've been a real estate agent for 10 years. My wife, Pam, is also an agent with Berkshire. I am a former deputy sheriff and investigator with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, and I also worked in city government on emergency preparedness and training. And I've given this safety lecture, for lack of a better term, with Keller Williams, Windermere, and then with EXP Realty. Okay, that's right. I zoomed it.
That's all right. There we go. How do I zoom it? That's all right. Minus? There we are.
Next slide, please.
There we are.
And who are we? So we're real estate agents. We make our living meeting complete strangers many times in vacant homes. As you all know, we could encounter squatters or some angry former homeowners, or more than likely aggressive dogs or cats, rats, that type of thing. And so prior to the pandemic, and hopefully after this is over, we will start doing open houses again. And of course, we announce those on social media, and we tell people where we're going to be and that type of thing. And so, all right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Some more people coming in. That's great. We obviously have an opportunity to make a large commission from a single phone call, right? And I think that during the time that we're in right now with the pandemic and the low inventory, I think we're more likely to take a risk and to meet someone without doing our due diligence. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're busy, we multitask, and we tend to not be present when showing properties or when we're meeting new clients. Next. So this is not, as Gina said, this is not a self-defense class. It's really a common sense class. And the message is to follow your intuition or your gut. So next slide. It's really about following the intuition, listening to that little voice in the back of your head. So I want to just give a little bit of background. Every year, National Association of Realtors does a safety report where they go out and they survey all of us real estate agents, and they ask a variety of questions about safety. And so this is the 2009 safety report that I want to share with you. 2020 hasn't come out yet. I don't know if they're going to do one based on what's gone on over the last year, but we'll see. So there was 53,000 agents that received it last year or the year before. About 3,100 or so responded for about 5.7%. And so there's a 95% confidence level in this survey. So I just want to share some of the things that came out with it. Next slide. So they asked all of us, the ones that participated, if you experienced a situation that made them fear for their personal safety. And 67% said no, and 33% said yes. And things that caused fear, and again, this is kind of prior to the pandemic, but obviously showing homes, meeting clients when they hadn't met them at the office, meeting clients for the first time at a property, holding an open house, model homes, that type of thing. So next slide. So the next question they asked, is it possible to move that? Or there we go, perfect. Okay, sorry about that. So they asked if the real estate agent experienced a situation that made them fear for their personal security. So about 28% of the male respondents said yes, 40% of the female respondents said yes. And then it goes, we looked at small towns, rural areas, metro urban areas, and then suburban areas. So 35% of those folks, male and female, said that they encountered some kind of an interaction that made them fear for their personal safety or the safety of their personal information, which I wish they wouldn't lump those together, but they just did. So that's fine. And then they asked the same question, they broke it down a little bit more. The typical realtor reported feeling unsafe less than once a year, 54% in terms of their personal safety, but unsafe in terms of their personal information every few months or more often 61%. So if you look at that slide there, daily or more often 16%, weekly about 13%, and so on and so forth. So a small percentage of the overall respondents, but still a lot of those agents reported feeling unsafe less than one time a year. Gonna take a breath here.
Okay, no, huh?
Wow. So the good news is that when they did this survey, and this is true of just about every survey they've done over the last 4 or 5 years, is that most agents have not been a victim of any kind of a crime or where they felt like they were threatened. So that's the good news. About 95% have never been a victim of a crime while they were working as an agent. 2% said yes to identity theft. 2% said yes to a robbery. 1% said yes to an assault, and then 1% to prefer not to say. So again, the good news is that most agents who were surveyed had never been a victim of a crime.
Oh, no,
That's all right. Next one. Sorry, guys.
there we go. Sorry.
Okay. And then self-defense weapons. We're going to talk a little bit more about this as I get further on in the presentation. So 44% of members chose to carry a self-defense weapon. The most common was pepper spray. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. 14% said they carried a firearm. 7% carried a pocket knife, which is worthless.
I was gonna say.
And then down from there, taser, a battery-operated noisemaker, and then they preferred not to say. So a large percentage of the agents surveyed carried some sort of what they call the self-defense weapon. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. They broke it down male and female. So 26% of the females that were surveyed carried pepper spray. Only 4% of the males surveyed. These are real estate agents. Of those, 12% of the females carried a firearm. 18% of the males carried a firearm. 6 and 9 for pocket knife, a taser, 6%, 2%, a baton or a club, 1%, 3%, and then battery operated noisemaker. So kind of interesting statistics. Okay, so we're gonna talk about something that is a phrase that's used in law enforcement and in the military. It's called situational awareness. okay? And basically what situational awareness is it's just being aware of your surroundings and identifying potential threats and dangerous situations, okay? This is not just for highly trained government agents or specialized corporate security teams, it's for all of us. The primary element in establishing this mindset is to first recognize and be cognizant of threats that may or may not exist, okay? And in the studies that they've done, there's a great book called Fear, where it actually had some case studies of people who had been attacked. And there's been quite a few case studies of real estate agents who have been attacked. And this was the number one issue, was they were either ignorant to or denied in their mind that there was a threat. So denial of a threat makes a person's chances of quickly recognizing an emerging threat and avoiding it highly unlikely. So the worst thing that we can do, bad things happen when we're apathetic or we deny or we don't listen to that little voice in the back of our head that says, hey, something is wrong. So I want to give you just a quick example. So I am very fortunate. I went to the Sheriff's Academy in 1989, a long time ago. It was so long ago that the standard issue was a Smith & Wesson 38 revolver. She had 6 rounds, right? And we had little things called speed loaders that if you expended all the rounds, you had to stop, open up the gun, put the bullets in. So it was a long time ago, right? We also didn't have a lot of the tools that they have in today's law enforcement. When I started, we had mace, which is totally useless. And then a couple of years down the road, we got pepper spray, and then tasers came on. So we were taught, and it was drilled into us in the academy, which is 6 months long, to avoid getting yourself in a situation where you have to use force. That is a police. I don't care what anybody says. That is a police officer's main objective when they go to work every day, is not to get into physical altercations. It's actually to avoid those. And so the reason I bring that up is because I was trained extremely well. I started in the jail, so I did 3 years in the jail, and it really taught me to pay attention to those verbal and physical cues that I still pay attention to this day. Okay, like my wife and kids will always laugh. I still sit in the back of a restaurant. I don't put my back to the door. Those kind of things. But those are things that are kind of drilled into you, and things that we're trained to do. I want all of you to start being aware, particularly as we come out of this pandemic and as we go back to doing business as usual. We're doing open houses again, where we're meeting more clients again. I really want you to start thinking about this awareness of the situation that you're in, okay? So we all need to take responsibility for our own security. And one of the most important aspects of this is to really trust your gut, okay? If your gut tells you that something's wrong, little hairs in the back of your neck stand up, you need to pay attention to it. And what's challenging for real estate agents, as opposed to being a police officer, is, you know, a lot of us feel like we don't want to offend the client. We don't want to make somebody mad, or if they put us in a weird situation, we don't want to say, hey, I'm not comfortable. But we've got to stop doing that. We've got to get over that. And I know I speak for Gina and all of the other leadership with Berkshire Hathaway, that if you ever get in a situation like that, and you have to say to a client, look, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I'm just not comfortable going in that house. I'm just not comfortable meeting you. And you can explain that, articulate to Gina. I know she'll back you 100%. So we need to put that all behind us and start trusting our gut and avoiding potentially dangerous situations that may seem like an inconvenience, but can lead to serious trouble. So this is a quick little awareness color chart. White is the lowest level. You're home, you're switched off, you're relaxing on a Sunday afternoon. Yellow obviously is the next level of that alert. You're kind of aware of your surroundings. And to the people who occupy it, orange is a heightened level of awareness. Your sense that something is not right. This is the time to really evaluate and formulate a plan. And then of course, red is the fight is on. I never want you to get to orange or red and while you're working as a real estate agent. I never want you to get there. The whole purpose of this talk is to help you avoid those situations so you don't have to get into a situation where where it's fight or flight. You've got to pay attention to that little voice in the back of your head that says something isn't right. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a good example. I hope it plays. This is a cool little. Not play. Darn it. No, I don't know why. I think you had to like shoot. Oh, there it is. So this is a perfect example of the lowest level of awareness. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
It worked when I just did it. Maybe go back one more time. And,
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's fine.
Huh. I just did it on my computer.
Okay.
If I watch on YouTube, it works. Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened. So this older couple is leaving their house, and the wife walks out first, the man walks out next, and there's a bear, a small bear to their right. They never see the bear until it's too late. So they walk outside. They obviously have a camera there. He locks the door. The wife walks. She walks away. They walk away, and the bear follows them. And about 30 seconds later, you see the man run up to the front door. I don't know what happened to the wife. Unlocks the door and goes in and leaves the wife wherever she was. So maybe she's running down the street. But that's a perfect example of the lowest level of awareness is when we're like that. How many of us have done that where, back in the old days when we used to show a lot of property and there wasn't, this pandemic didn't exist, where you pull up to a house, you really haven't done your homework. You're busy. These people wanted to see it. You got the MLS sheet in one hand. You got your keys in the other hand. You got your iPhone. You got your purse, whatever. And you run up to the door. You fumble. You drop stuff. That's where the real danger is. And so it's so critically important, one, that we do our homework when we meet with people, that we understand who they are and where they're coming from, that we do it in a public place, but that when we're out there, we're not at this level where we're not paying attention to the things that go on around us. I'll go into that in a minute. Next slide, please. Let's skip. Sorry about that video. I'm really bummed that didn't work. Okay, let's go to the next one. That's Jason's one.
No.
You can try it.
We can try it.
Okay.
No, this won't work.
That's weird. So this is the highest level. This is red.
These are real.
Okay.
Who has a safety deposit box full of money and 6 passports and a gun? Who has a bank account number in their hip?
I come in here, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm catching the sightlines and looking for an exit.
I see the exit sign too. I'm not worried. I mean, you were shot. People do all kinds of weird and amazing stuff when they're scared.
I can tell you the license plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking. Now, why would I know that? How can I know that and not know who I am?
Okay, so that's a little too aware of your surroundings, right? Knowing all the license plates. But the point is that on that level, when we're out showing property, we're looking at houses, things like that. We're meeting with clients that we've never met before. You got to be in that middle tier level and really be aware of your surroundings. We'll talk a little bit about more of that here. So I'm going to talk about agent safety. This is directly from the National Association of Realtors. So this is their NAR safety presentation. So this, I didn't make this stuff up. They have a great way to think about approaching a property, whether you're showing a property, whether you're going to a listing appointment for the very first time. NAR, and I think this is a great suggestion to observe this. It's called the 10-second safety scan, okay? So whenever you arrive at your destination, whether it be the office on a weekend where there's nobody here, you're meeting a buyer for the first time, or you're doing a listing appointment for the first time, it's really important to be aware of your surroundings, okay? So I want you to take a couple seconds when you arrive at your destination. I do this every time, by the way. When I arrive at the destination, I look around and I want to make sure that there's nobody else around, there's no strange people walking around, anything that's out of the ordinary, right, in a neighborhood, okay? Number two is that don't ever, never, ever park in a driveway, okay? Why? Because if I am a bad guy and I have set this up and you park in the driveway, where am I going to park? I'm going to park right behind you, so you can't get out, okay? If you watch police officers, they never park in driveways. Why is that? Because it's very easy to get in that car and put it in the drive as opposed to trying to back out, put it in reverse. And some of the cars now, you got to do the lever and it doesn't make any sense and you end up putting it in park accidentally. So if you're rushed, all you have to do is put it in the drive and get the heck out of there. So don't ever park in the driveway. And if you're doing it, stop. Please, don't park in the driveway. Not a good idea. Is there any questionable activity in the area? So that's your 2 seconds. Then when you step out of the car, I want you to look around and ask yourself, is there any suspicious people around? Do you know exactly where you're going? So many of us, a lot of times when we get something where we're rushed, we don't do our due diligence. Guys, I know we rely on our GPS, but how many times has our GPS taken us to a back gate on Madison, right? When we should be on Jefferson. It's really important to do your homework before you go out and meet with people so you know where you're going and you know how to get in and you know how to get out quickly. So next slide. Then after you've come out of your car, you've taken that 2 seconds, then you're going to take another 2 seconds as you walk towards the property. Are there any people coming and going? Is the area unusually quiet? Do you observe any obstacles or hiding places in the parking lot or along the street? I always look in bushes. I mean, when I'm approaching someplace, like if it's a vacant house, I am very slow to get to that front door. I take my time and I listen and I watch and I try to see what's going on. After that 2 seconds, you have an uneasy feeling as you're walking in. Is someone following you? I want you all to get in the habit on every time you go to a house of knocking on the door, waiting a couple seconds, then opening that door and then listening, okay? And the reason I say that is because, you know, as a police officer, you never rush into anywhere unless you're executing a search warrant, okay? But let's just say it's a ringing alarm, you're gonna be slow, you're gonna take your time. I want you guys to think of it that way. So knock, open the door, and then listen. Do I hear any unusual activities? Did I hear anybody cough, anything like that? Particularly when it's a vacant house. Okay.
Scampering out the back door.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, your ears will tell you a lot. And then as you enter the destination, does anything seem out of place? Is anyone there that shouldn't be? Does anything look strange? Is there glass on the ground? Is a window open for some reason? So rather than just rushing in, I want you to start really thinking about taking time to look and know your surroundings.
Is there a question there?
Sound like a sneeze. Or a yawn. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully, as the pandemic eases up, people get their vaccines, and things begin to open up, and we're allowed to do this. Really important private showings, particularly open houses, to let at least one person that you know, and possibly your office, where you're going to be at all times. So as we start to come back to doing open houses, it's super important to make sure that somebody else, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, know where you're going to be. Hey, I'm going to be at 123 Main Street from 12 to 3 on Saturday. Just want to let you know, if you hear from me, then, you know, something's up. Or you can check on me when you're there. Don't agree to any private showings unless you've met the client in a public space. I can't tell you how critically important this is. And the reason it's important is because if someone has nefarious ideas, they're not going to want to meet you in a public space. They're not going to want to come to the office. And if they do come to the office, like Gina talked about, then you have an opportunity to really see them in an open public space. and you can read them. You say, you know, if you have any problems with this person, I want you to go right to Gina or anybody else and say, you know, this guy's making, or this gal's making me feel kind of strange. Can you help me out? So really important. One of the nice things about having to do a PED is that we've had to get the client information. Now, some of you might say, well, they could always lie, give us false information. True. But if you can, it's really important to try to get your clients to give you information when you first meet them, whether it's a copy of a driver's license. If you're following them, make sure to jot down their license plate, maybe take a picture of their license plate. If they are, you know, if you have a weird feeling about them. And if you can, bring a coworker along. Really important, specifically with open houses, if you can have another agent there with you, all the better, right? And it's a great sales technique too, because if you're there with two people, somebody wants to see another house, they can go take them there. But if you can, try to always have another agent with you on an open house, because a lot of these incidents happen at open houses, okay? And then really important to never leave a client in your blind spot, okay? Always let the client proceed in front of you. For example, there was a lady, I think it was in Tennessee or Oklahoma, not important, but she was an agent. She basically bent down to open the lockbox with the guy behind her, and they ended up knocking her on the head and kidnapped her. And you know, they found her; she was okay, but it was kind of a very bad, obviously, incident. So it's really important when you're at a house to not allow people into your blind spot. So in other words, if I'm going to go up and open a lockbox and Lauren's behind me, the first thing I do is I say, I want you to stand on the curb, stand in the driveway, and let me go open the Supra. Okay, you stay right here, and I'll go open the Supra. I'll open the house, you just stay right here. If they follow you and you've asked them to stay there, then that obviously escalates it, and you're going to have to make a decision. You really want to go with this person. Most people, if I ask them, please stay at the curb, I'm going to open the lockbox, they're fine. They stay at the curb, they wait. A lot of my clients are trained that way. They just stay there as soon as they get out of the car and wait for me. But never put a client in your blind spot. So what I mean by that is if Lauren is my client and the Supra's here, rather than opening it like this with her behind me, I'm going to turn sideways and I'm going to open it so I can see her and I can open the lockbox at the same time. Okay? So it's very important. And then when you're showing a person a house, always let them go in front of you. Okay? Please come on in. Now, what I do is I say, stay here at the curb. Let me go open the house. I go in, do my knock, listen, look around real quick, and then I say, okay, come on in. Okay? So take your time. And particularly as things begin to open and we start showing more properties and we have all these open houses, it's critically important that you think about these safety measures when working with clients. Okay? And then finally on this one, drive through the neighborhood prior to a private showing or open house. Really, really important to know the neighborhood. When times are normal, it's a great sales technique too, to knock on a few doors next door, introduce yourself, tell them you're holding an open house, that type of thing. So let's go to the next one. And then make sure to, when you go into an open house or any house, make sure you identify all the exits prior to a showing. Keep exit doors unlocked. When I show a house, the first thing I do is I walk in and I open the sliders in the back, so I have a way to get out in case I need to get out quickly. I'm not always worried about the client that I'm with, but I'm worried is there somebody else in the house so we can get out real quick. So always, even in the summertime, if I'm showing property in August, I'll open the back sliders so I know I can get out. I leave that front door open. Obviously, there's a cat, you can't, but I mean, in most cases, you're able to do that in a vacant property, right? So really important to think about those things. If something happens, how do I get out? Don't allow a client to ride in your car. That's really not happening anymore. I think that's going to take a long time before clients start riding with us, right? With that. Don't wear expensive jewelry, men and women. You know, don't wear that Rolex. Leave your purse in the trunk of your car. A lot of times, those things can become a hindrance if you're carrying a large purse. You got your keys, you got your phone, trying to open the Supra. Leave it in the trunk, lock it. There's some good personal security apps for your cell phone. Always keep your cell phone in your hand. You know, a lot of people put them down on the counter and then start walking around. Keep that thing in your hand. It's good to have in your hand in case something happens. More than anything else, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, then get yourself out of that situation. Google your clients like they Google you. A lot of your clients are Googling you. before you meet with them, Google them and see what you can find out about them. You'll be amazed at what you can find out. Never park in the driveway of a home. Wanted to put that in there one more time. And don't worry about offending a client. Your safety is absolutely paramount. And then real quick, maintain your car, consider AAA. When driving in an unfamiliar area, make notes, landmarks, etc. It's really important to know the streets too. So if you're going into an area where you haven't been in, and God forbid you have to make a call, what are the cross streets? What's the address? Make sure you know the address of where you are. A lot of times we're showing 6, 7 properties, we get confused. Make sure you know that, because if God forbid you have to make a call real quick, you want to be able to put out your location. GPS is not always accurate, so be sure to map it the day before. Avoid texting while driving. Have your keys ready in your hands when walking to your car. Nothing worse than fumbling for your keys when you're walking out to the car. If, God forbid, someone were to come up to you, you want to be able to get in the car quickly. Lock all doors and park in well-lit areas.
I'm gonna take a breath.
This is really interesting. I haven't done this with.
Yeah.
Okay, so should you take a self-defense class or use pepper spray? So this is always where we have a good discussion. So again, learning to evaluate the threats and trying to understand and be really aware to those is really critical, because I don't ever want you to get in a situation where, God forbid, you have to use a self-defense technique or you have to use pepper spray. So let's talk about pepper spray. So I've been pepper sprayed. I've used pepper spray on bad guys, and it is highly dangerous. And I know when I do these classes, a lot of agents will say, I have pepper spray. I've tested them sometimes. I tested one house and it just went, we hadn't used it in like 2 years. It had expired. The problem with pepper spray is that if you're in a confined area, okay, or you're outside and it's windy, if Gina sprays me from where she is right here in this controlled environment, she may not get any blowback from that. But chances are she's going to. Now, if the air is circulating or if we're outside and it's super windy and I spray you, I can almost guarantee you that you are going to get some of those effects from that pepper spray. So I know a lot of people carry it. They've never used it. They've never sprayed it. They don't know the trajectory of the spray. And they don't understand how incapacitating pepper spray can be. I've been pepper sprayed straight in the face, not a fun experience. And when I pepper sprayed bad guys, I ended up, especially if there's a physical confrontation or if I'm close to that person, I ended up getting pepper sprayed myself, coughing, hacking, sneezing. It's not a pleasant experience. So if you're going to carry pepper spray, okay, I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying I want you to go out to a park. I want you to buy 2 bottles of it. I want you to go out to a park and you open it. I want you to practice spraying it. Get next to a tree and pretend that that's the person's eyes and make sure you practice that. Because again, some of the commercially available pepper sprays only have maybe a 2-foot, 3-foot range. And if you don't understand that range and you try to spray it, you're going to end up making the other person very angry and possibly incapacitating yourself. Okay. Any questions on that? So if you're going to use pepper spray, please, please, please use it. Make sure you understand how to use it and make sure you understand that the gel, someone asked about the gel. So I don't have any experience with the gel. Never used it, never had it. So I really can't answer the question. Again, pepper spray is most law enforcement officers don't like using it. They'll use it if they have to, but they don't like using it because of the fact that they end up getting, even if I spray Gina, I touch Gina, and I get it on my fingers and I touch my eyes, it's going to have a bad effect on me. So particularly if you're allergic to it, a lot of people can be allergic to it. So just make sure you understand it. And then self-defense class. So I think self-defense classes are fantastic. I think everybody should take them, but you need to practice. You can't, I don't want you to just take a self-defense class and then say, that's it. I'm never going to take another self-defense class. Because again, until you, it's like Mike Tyson said, right? Until you're all tough and bad until you get punched in the face. And if you've never been hit in the face or punched in the nose, it's not a good experience. And so for some people, the self-defense class, the pepper spray can give you a false sense of security. And I think it's great. I think that you should be able to get out of a situation, but don't just take the self-defense class one time. Take it again and again and again. Practice, if you have a gym, practice those types of techniques. Because the thing about police officers, we spent hundreds of hours practicing self-defense, using pepper spray, using our weapon. We'll talk about that in a second. So very important, if you take the class, to maintain that self-defense, whatever that may be, okay?
Mark?
Yes.
This is Ellen. I have a device. It has a little thing that you can clip it to your purse or your pant loops, and everybody cover your ears. All I have to do is grab this, and you can hear the sound that it makes. And it's just a little, thing that I take with me, and if I need it, I've got it.
On the next slide.
I'm sorry?
Did you cheat and did you go ahead and see my slide? Yeah, so that's another. So there are a couple of other ways to do that. So they talked about those noise makers. That's a great thing. If you get like a little, like the boat horns, those things are super loud. That's a great way of causing a diversion and getting out of there, fast. But again, my whole message to you is do everything you possibly can to avoid having to use pepper spray, a noise maker, whatever that is, your self-defense technique. Because once you're in that situation, and once you're face to face with someone who is going to attack you or has plans of attacking you, it becomes a very different situation. I've been in physical altercations as a police officer, and some of the scrawniest, smallest people kicked my butt. People that I never would have thought, I wouldn't be able to fight. I was in my mid-30s, in great shape, and I lost some fights with some pretty small people, and women included. So it's really hard to say and hard to predict how someone is going to react in that situation. The noisemakers are good. I'm not saying don't use pepper spray. I'm just saying if you use it, I want you to make sure you understand how it works, the effects it has on the bad person, the effects it may or may not have on you. Okay. So I think that's great. I mean, I think those noisemakers are really good to have. That's a good thing. Social media safety for realtors. I think, to Gina's point about this person who is, clearly harassing agents, that you have to be extremely careful on social media. And we've all seen it, we've all seen the real estate agent who's worked really hard on his or her beach body and decides, to show themselves at the river, and then come back and, hold an open house and broadcast to the world that me and my new beach body are now holding an open house at 123 Main Street. I'll be there all day by myself. And I mean, that's the scary part. So I want you to really think about what you post and how you post, photos of yourself. And because we were talking before, it's very easy to go on to Facebook, Instagram, or whatever and find people these days. It's scary easy. And it's scary easy to find their locations. A lot of these things have location devices like Snapchat and others where people can actually go on Snapchat and see where you are. So, I want you to really think about what you post. I said politics at the end. My suggestion is to never, ever post anything political. But that's up to you. I think that can cause, obviously, in the environment that we live in today, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think it causes you a lot of problems. And I think, if that post is seen by the wrong person, like this guy that we're talking about, it can cause some serious problems. So, avoid posting that you're going on vacation if you can. I know it's nice. What I suggest is like when you go on vacation, when you come back, then post the photos. Hey, this is our beautiful trip. I think you did that. Yeah. So it was like, hey, we're gone. House is unlocked. It's like, hey, we had a great time in Sedona. Here's our vacation photo.
No, I knew somebody that posted while they were on vacation. They lived in Home Desert Country Club, and they came home and everything was gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, again, I could spend 5 minutes and figure out a lot of information on people You could too. You know, we live in a very, very different world today than many of us did in, you know, many years ago, but very easy to find out where you are, where you live.
I
It's
want
not
to say
hard.
real quick on Facebook too, after this situation happened with this particular gentleman, I went right into my Facebook and I limited my, all of my posts to
Yeah.
people, only friends or friends of friends. But,
Yeah.
and then, also, I limited all my past posts, so you can't go on anymore and see anything because,
I don't know if you heard that, but Ellie said she went into Facebook and limited the people who could see her post to only her friends. Same with past posts. I think that's a great idea. You know, particularly in light of what's going on and this person that is obviously, you know, keeping an eye on agents. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. So just be careful, think before you post. Never post after a few glasses of wine, never a good idea. So yeah, turn it off, turn it off.
Some people they may never post ever.
Yeah, it's true, that's true. So
Wine for breakfast.
yeah, I think, so that's the end of the presentation, but again, I want to just go back to the crux of what we've been talking about, and that is, you really have to follow your intuition. If you talk to someone on the phone, or someone comes into the office, or you get an email or a message from somebody, and it makes you in the slightest bit uncomfortable, please pay attention to that voice in the back of your head that says, you know, this isn't a good idea, or I'm a little bit concerned. And you can respond by using words like, you know, sure, me and my partner will be happy to meet you. Me and my broker will be happy to meet you. We will be happy to meet you. And you'll very quickly see if somebody does, you know, have nefarious intentions, that person is going to fade away very quickly. So be super careful, super aware. Don't be like the couple with the bear, which I'm really sorry you didn't get to see that video. It's highlighted my presentation, but that's the way it is. Okay.
Question.
So you mentioned in the Zoom call that we were going to talk about the difference between a stalker and someone that's a predator.
Okay, good. So what's the difference between someone who is a predator and someone who is a stalker? In my opinion, there's not much difference. This guy that we're talking about is clearly a predator, right? I mean, how many, do we even know how many agents he's contacted over the last?
Oh, it's a bunch of agents because the whole board of realtors knows about him. And I was on Ladies of Desert Real Estate. He actually has another name, and I'll let you know. I don't know, can't remember it off the top of my head. You know, he's got a warrant out for his arrest, we're told right now. There's issues with this guy. He's been around. I don't think there's many female agents that I know of that have not blocked him because he's an issue. He's an issue. So just heads up.
Here's the thing, is that this guy is just one example of, you know, many other people that are out there, that could be out there, that could come, you know, into what we do. And it's just so important that you treat everyone with that same concern. And so this guy clearly, I mean, he's clearly a predator. He's preying on agents. He's also stalking, obviously, clearly stalking some agents to find out, did he come in and ask for you by name?
No, he wanted a copy of something.
Oh, okay.
But he
But I
did
know-
say some things that was.
But I know he has spoken and asked for others by name. So, you know, clearly he is a predator, and clearly he is stalking real estate agents to try to get them in a situation. So, but beyond this person, it's just so important to pay attention to the visual and physical and auditory cues that you get from people. We've all been there, right? I mean, we've all felt uncomfortable at a showing or on the phone when someone calls. And it's just so important that you pay attention to that little voice inside of your head. But in terms of predator and stalker, in my opinion, there's really not that much difference. I mean, they are kind of the same. Obviously, this guy's preying on agents and he's stalking them to find out where they are. Now, I know Gina talked about possibly a restraining order or something along those lines. Keep in mind, the restraining order is only as good as the paper it's written on. And, you know, that person has to abide by the restraining order, which in my opinion and experience They rarely do. So
So-
don't let that be a false sense of security. Yeah.
What is the typical profile of someone like this? I mean, he's a predator, so what is his typical behavior? I want to know.
I can tell you what he did.
Go
As
ahead.
far as
Does somebody have some experience with it? Go ahead.
I do too.
Go ahead.
So, he, as soon as he asked me what I was doing here, I said, can I make a copy?
Yeah, could you
I said,
speak
"I don't
up so
have
they
authority.
can hear?
I don't have the authority to tell you what if you can have a copy, let me get Gina, our broker." So Gina came and she made a copy, and I felt like he was safe because she was making a copy for him when he asked me what I did. Like I said, I was new in real estate, so what did you do before? And I said I was in communication, so immediately he went like, "Oh, I had dinner with Karen Devine last night." And started telling me, she's been this for 25 years. She's got 2 boys, small boys. I go, well, actually, they're not small. They're grown. He found out I was in communications, but in a second, he tried to find common ground. So I felt a little bit more trustful of him because he found common ground with me. And that's when he asked if I'd go outside, and these guys said, "Don't go outside." And so he started, a couple hours later, he started calling me, and I just blocked him immediately.
Yeah, the MO is, he does, and I'm sure it's probably Facebook or some other manner. He finds mutual friends. So when he calls you, he says, "Oh, Gina, I just met with Mark Wasserman. He suggested I call you." So your guard comes down immediately because, yeah, I know Mark, and he would never send somebody wacko to me, right? And you start having a conversation with them. And we actually had one of our agents, he took that approach on her, and she went and met him for coffee. And she kept thinking, I don't know this guy from Adam. So she kept asking questions, and he kept pulling up people that they mutually knew. And then when she said, well, let's talk about real estate, because here's the thing, he's got a Maui phone number, an 808 area code that he uses. He's got a Maui number, and he says, I have a house in Maui, and I want to buy a house in Bighorn. That's his big thing. So of course, as a realtor, you hear Bighorn and go, "Oh, I can help you," right? Without really listening. So when this agent said, well, let's talk about real estate, what he did is he started turning very nasty and getting verbally abusive, and started talking about how horrible realtors were and how he thinks they're all, just rotten, and just started getting almost scary yelling. And she got up and she said, "You know what, our meeting's over." And she left, and she came right back to the office. But it could have spun out, spiraled out of control had she not just gotten out of there. So, just be careful. Just because they say they know your mutual friends, just play heads up, because this is what his tactics are. And I don't know. I know Eileen said, if they know who he is, why can't they apprehend him? I don't know the answer to that question. Everybody is aware of it. Apparently I don't know, I think he's been arrested. But interestingly, the copies that he asked me to make were not parking tickets. It was traffic violations that he had signed off. And so I'm looking at this, and, just that was weird. It was just weird.
Well, I think one of the answers to why this person hasn't been arrested, I don't know if that's the case, but in many cases, this guy just kind of walks the line. He hasn't, from what I heard, he hasn't broken the law. Right. He has not broken any laws. Now, if he keeps, harassing and stalking Ellie, that's a different story. That's when a law becomes broken. But to this point, unless there's more to the story, he hasn't broken any laws. He's just clearly, unstable. But 2 things I wanted to say is that kudos to the agent who said, meet me at Starbucks or a public place. Critically important to do that when you first meet clients. Please don't ever just go to the property. Meet them here, meet them, in a public place. And then 2, what Ellie said was interesting too, when he said, "Oh, Karen Devine's kids," and did you see out loud his kids are old, or her kids are older now?
Yeah, because he said they're little boys.
Yeah. So I mean, clearly he doesn't know Karen Devine. I mean, I know Karen Devine, not great, but I know her kids are grown. I mean, that's pretty simple. So I mean, that right, that's what I'm talking about, is really paying attention to those verbal cues, and that would be like, that just doesn't make sense, and maybe he's acting a little strange or whatever. What does this person look like? we know, I mean,
He's
Yeah.
tall, he's thin, he has scraggly hair.
how old is he?
He's completely gray.
He's gray, 70?
Yeah, I'd say he's in his 70s.
In his
What does
70s?
Ben get?
Very tall.
Does anybody know what he wants?
No, he's just a wacko.
So did everybody hear that? In his 70s, kind of gray hair, scraggly.
Yeah, he's very
Tall,
tall, very thin. He's got salt and pepper hair, but mostly gray. He had
Is he
it.
single?
Did it have a ponytail? I think he had it in. I think he had it in a ponytail. Dressed, he was just in. I mean, decent shoes. He had shorts on and just a regular shirt. I mean, he looked like anybody walking down El Paseo would look. Really.
Do you, is there an actual file
I'm sorry.
criminal, like a criminal mind? Is there a profile of someone that actually stalks people like this? Is there a typical, what they are possibly capable of? No.
The answer, well, there's two questions in there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll answer the second first. They're capable of anything. I mean,
Predictable.
there's been several cases of real estate agents being attacked and unfortunately killed. We've all heard about Beverly Carter and his very famous murder, but they're capable of anything. I mean, you can't,
Yeah.
you just can't let your guard down. In terms of, profile, I mean, that's, could be anything. I mean, I know one thing, criminals come in all shapes and sizes and colors and, ethnic backgrounds. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess the FBI has a profile, but I mean, this guy, he's in his 70s. He said 77. I mean, he's in late 70s.
I don't know. No, I'd say late 60s.
Late 60s, early 70s.
Because I've had a stalker before, well, a couple of them, and that's not like the typical, they eventually will do something physically to try to hurt you, but.
Look, in 1997, I was involved in an officer-involved shooting in Desert Hot Springs. The guy was 52 years old. He was a PhD from UCLA. He had 3 handguns and 250 rounds of ammunition. I mean, who would have thought, right? So I don't know that there's a profile where you can say, oh, it's a white male adult in his 50s. Wait, that's me. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, again, it goes back to what I was saying is that you have to be so incredibly, aware. Your awareness has to be heightened. Now, you can let that down a little bit, when you've met with someone and you've had, interaction and, you're starting to build some trust, but I never let it down completely because you just never know. You could have shown somebody 15 properties and all of a sudden something snaps. You can never let your guard down. And that's, hopefully what comes across is just to be, aware of your situation, aware of what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're acting. If they say something like Karen Devine's little kids, it's like, wait a minute, Karen Devine kids aren't little, they're grown. I mean, that just doesn't make sense, right? So yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't think there is one profile of a stalker. It could be anybody.
Okay, thanks.
I have something to say.
Yes.
It sparked a memory, but I used to work at Starbucks. I worked there for a long time, and I don't work there anymore, but I got my real estate license, and I was talking to a guy who comes in a lot, and he asked me, like, oh, you've been working here a while, right? And I said, yeah, and he goes, I said, but I'm about to leave. I got my real estate license, and he goes, oh, really? That's great. Like, I'm a real estate developer in Orange County. Like, can I have your email? And I'm young and naive, and I was just like, yeah, sure. And I'm new at this. And I thought, like, oh, this could be a good opportunity. And then he, like, reached out to me via email and told me he was looking for a be in the Madison Club and this and that. And I quickly realized it was not. He was not using me as a realtor, and then he later told me, oh, actually, I already have a realtor, but I would love for you to help me like manage my properties. And so there's weirdos everywhere. And he like used the fact that I talking about my real estate license to then like find a commonality and say, oh, well,
to get to the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but you were aware
Yeah, I
of
was.
that, and something said something in the back of your mind, and again, that's
Oh, and I said at
what
the
this is all
end,
about.
because we were kind of emailing like back and forth a little bit, and then I said at the end, well, he wanted to meet up, and I said, sure, me and my broker can meet up with you, and then he never responded after that.
Exactly.
So
Once you use words like we or my broker and I, hopefully that'll chase some of these fools away. But not always. Again, some will gain your trust over several showings or several meetings, and then something happens. So don't ever let your guard down. You should always be in that kind of yellow area of your awareness.
Also, when it comes to pepper spray and all that, I always carry with me, it's like a flashlight, but it's also a taser, and it has gotten me out of a certain situation using it. They sell them on Amazon, and they're small.
Just again, before you all rush out to buy tasers, I get it. This always makes me so nervous because I don't ever want to see any of you get hurt. You have to know how to use it, and you have to try it. Try it on your husband, your girlfriend first.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
It works.
Yeah, don't try it on your dog. You go to jail for that. But yeah, no, seriously. I mean, you need to understand what those kind of tools can and cannot do. And if you have a taser that, if the guy is 215 pounds, 220 pounds, that may not affect them as someone who's, 185 pounds. So there's a lot of variables when you talk about these types of devices. The noisemakers are great. I'm not saying don't use pepper spray. I'm saying if you use it, make sure you understand it, how it works, how it sprays, what it does when it sprays. If you're gonna use a taser, make sure you know what it feels like, how much energy it actually puts out. The ones you can buy commercially, that they're good. It'll stop somebody, like you said, and you can get out of there. But what I'm preaching to you guys is don't get into that situation where you have to use a taser or a noisemaker. I mean, you got to pay attention to the visual and physical cues. And the last thing is, a lot of agents talk about carrying a gun. I just want to caution you. You can get a concealed weapon permit. I do have a guy, Troy Lawrence, who I worked with at the Sheriff's Department. He teaches a class. He's great if you have an interest in that. But again, I don't know how the broker feels, but I'm just going to say generally, if you have a gun in your house, you need to practice. Practice. I mean, I can't tell you how many rounds I fired in, the 11 years I was there. Thousands. I mean, cops have to qualify every quarter. You're constantly practicing. In the academy, you fire off thousands of rounds. If you're going to have a gun, please make sure you get training on how to use it. You take a class and you practice. And the other thing is, it's not that easy to shoot somebody. It's you have to be psychologically prepared for something like that. And my fear is that, someone who carries a gun and uses that again as a false sense of security, if you're not prepared to fire that gun and take someone's life, don't carry that gun.
Right.
I've done it. So, it's not an easy thing to do, but I was trained. So it's a totally different scenario. But if you decide to have a gun, please.
And keep them locked up.
Keep them locked up, yeah. Any other questions?
Hey, Mark, on the spray versus the gel.
Yeah.
The gel seems like, and I'm not an expert, so please talk to the retailer selling the product, but it sounds like they came up with the gel to address situations where you're in windy environments because the wind can blow the pepper spray back in your face, etc. And supposedly the gel actually will stick to the individual that you're using it on. So it sounds like there could be some upside advantages to that. But again, like you said, without obtaining it, practicing, right? There's always risk. And
I think, don't laugh, but I think you should spray yourself. I mean, because at least, we all got sprayed, right? I mean, at least, you have to understand how incapacitating those types of aerosols and gels can be. I'm kidding about, don't go out and spray yourself. But I should spray myself. No, I'm just saying, if you've never experienced what it's like to be pepper sprayed or have that blowback from the spray, it's incapacitating and it's instant. So you just have to know that there are some downsides from using those types of equipment, that type of equipment. But again, I never want you to get in that position where you have to make a choice between pepper spraying someone and getting the hell out of there. I don't want you to get into that position. I want you to pay attention, look for those cues. Don't put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable, so that you don't have to be faced with using pepper spray or, you know, your noise maker or whatever. Because at that point, all bets are off. So please be careful. What else?
Any other questions for Mark?
I'll do a little research on that gel, because I don't have any experience with it, and I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Mark. I
Thank
really
you, Mark.
appreciate you doing this. You guys stay safe.
Very
And,
much.
If we have no other questions, then we'll end our meeting today. Stay safe. Let's go get some listings, and our boards are looking good. So let's just kick it for the last couple of weeks of February. And I'm here if you need help with anything. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. You bet.
Okay.